You've probably tried to eat less. Most people have. In fact, a 2023 Gallup poll found that 55% of Americans say they want to lose weight, and nearly half of them have actively tried in the past year. But here's the thing. The method most of them use is the one with the highest failure rate: counting calories, cutting portions, white-knuckling their way through hunger, and almost all of them end up back where they started. Today I'm breaking down the exact numbers behind why 16 to 8 fasting works differently, and what your body is actually doing during those hours. The number you hear most often is 16 and 8. 16 hours without eating, 8 hours where you do. Most people hear that and think, this is going to be miserable. They picture 16 hours of hunger, of staring at the clock, of white-knuckling through the morning. But that number is misleading, because it's not 16 hours of active suffering. You're asleep for 7 or 8 of them. You stop eating at, say, 8 p.m. You wake up at 6 a.m. That's already 10 hours done. You just need to push your first meal back 2 more hours. The real ask, the actual behavioral change, is 2 hours. That reframe comes from research published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2019, which described intermittent fasting not as extreme restriction, but as a metabolic switch, something your body is already built to do. The researchers argued that the modern pattern of eating across 14 to 16 hours a day is the anomaly. The compressed window is closer to what human physiology expects. If you've ever slept through the night without eating, you've already done a version of this. You've been doing it your whole life. You just never pushed the window a little further. Here's the first threshold that matters, the 12-hour mark. Around 12 hours into a fast, your body depletes the glucose stored in your liver, called glycogen, and begins shifting its fuel source. It starts producing molecules called ketones, which your brain and muscles can run on instead of sugar. This isn't a crisis, it's a gear shift your body has been capable of since birth. Think about it this way. If you last ate at 7 p.m., by 7 a.m., your body has already crossed that line. You woke up, had black coffee, got dressed, got into your car, all of it running on a different fuel you didn't even know you'd switched to. That slight mental clarity some people feel in the morning before breakfast? That's not caffeine alone. That's the beginning of ketone metabolism. A 2014 study published in Cell Metabolism found that mice eating within an 8-hour window had significantly better metabolic outcomes than mice eating the same number of calories over 15 hours, even when both groups ate a high-fat diet. The calories were identical. The timing was the variable. That result has since been replicated in human trials with similar conclusions. People sitting at this threshold, those who have been unintentionally fasting 12 hours every night, often feel like they haven't done anything meaningful yet. They're right that it's easy, but they're one small decision away from unlocking a different level of the mechanism. So, does pushing from 12 hours to 16 actually change anything measurable? The second threshold is 16 hours, the full window. This is where autophagy starts to become relevant. Autophagy is your body's cellular cleanup process. It breaks down and recycles damaged proteins, dysfunctional organelles, and cellular debris that accumulates over time. Researcher Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize in Physiology in 2016, specifically for his work describing this mechanism, work that had been largely unknown outside scientific circles, until the fasting conversation brought it into public awareness. You don't need to memorize the biology. What matters is this: autophagy ramps up meaningfully around the 14 to 16 hour mark, according to research from the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So, the extra 4 hours, the hours that feel the most difficult for most beginners, are actually the hours doing some of the more interesting cellular work. The discomfort, in other words, has a physiological purpose. It's not arbitrary restriction. One surprising demographic data point: A 2020 study published in Obesity found that adults over 55 who practiced time-restricted eating saw significantly greater improvements in blood pressure and insulin sensitivity than younger adults following the exact same protocol. The popular assumption is that fasting is for young, disciplined people with fast metabolisms. The data says the opposite. Age makes this more effective, not less. That closes the question of whether the extra hours matter. They do, measurably, but it opens a bigger one. If this is about more than just eating less, what is the real mechanism driving the results people actually experience? The third threshold worth knowing is 24 hours. This isn't where you're headed, not as a beginner, and arguably not ever unless you choose to go there. But understanding it changes how you think about the shorter windows. At 24 hours, autophagy is significantly elevated. Glycogen stores are fully depleted. The body has committed to fat metabolism in a way that's measurable in the bloodstream. Ketone levels rise, inflammatory markers begin to drop, growth hormone spikes. Here's what's worth noting. High-performing professionals have been using variations of this for years without calling it fasting. A surgeon who finishes rounds at noon and eats her first meal then, stopping at 8 p.m. That's 16 to 8. She didn't adopt a protocol. She just never had time for breakfast. A 45-year-old founder who drinks black coffee until 1 p.m. and eats dinner with his family. Same window, no app, and no tracking. And here's the trend line. According to the International Food Information Council's 2023 Food and Health Survey, intermittent fasting was the most widely practiced dietary approach in the United States for the fourth consecutive year. More people are doing it each year. The body of research supporting it is expanding alongside adoption. But the part most people still miss, the insight that changes how the whole picture fits together, is still ahead. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Everything so far has been about when you eat and what happens biochemically during those hours. But the thing most beginners get wrong isn't the window itself. It's what they believe the window is supposed to do. Most people start 16 to 8 to lose weight. Some of them do, some don't. And the ones who quit, usually somewhere around week 2 or 3, almost always say the same thing. I wasn't even hungry, but I wasn't losing weight either. There's a specific reason for that. And it has nothing to do with willpower or effort. Stay with me, because this next part is the piece your doctor probably never explained. Here's the truth about what 16 to 8 actually does and doesn't do. It is not a calorie-cutting protocol on its own. If you eat the same 2,500 calories compressed into an 8-hour window that you used to eat across 14 hours, your weight may not change significantly. What changes immediately and measurably is your metabolic signaling. Insulin is the central character here. Every time you eat, especially carbohydrates, your body releases insulin into the bloodstream. And insulin's job is to move glucose from the blood into cells for energy. That's the beneficial role. But insulin also functions as a storage hormone. When it's elevated, your body cannot efficiently access fat stores. The door to fat burning is locked, while insulin is high. In the modern American eating pattern, breakfast at 7, snack at 10, lunch at 1, afternoon snack, dinner at 7, something at 9, insulin is elevated for most of the waking day. There is almost no window where it drops low enough for fat metabolism to meaningfully occur. A 2018 study in Cell Metabolism followed men with metabolic syndrome who practiced 16 to 8 for 12 weeks. Without being instructed to reduce calories, and without meaningfully doing so, they showed measurably lower fasting insulin levels, reduced blood pressure, and decreased oxidative stress at the end of the trial. The window did the work, not the restriction. Now think about this across a lifetime. A 52-year-old school teacher who has eaten 3 full meals plus snacks every day for 30 years has had chronically elevated insulin for most of her waking hours across 3 decades. Her body hasn't been given a meaningful fasting window in years, possibly ever. A 27-year-old who skips breakfast, eats lunch and dinner within an 8-hour window, and snacks on processed food, may actually have a better insulin profile than that teacher. Not because of what he eats, Because of when? Calories are income. Insulin sensitivity is the balance sheet. You can earn a reasonable income and still be financially underwater if the structure is wrong. You can eat a reasonable number of calories and still be metabolically struggling if the timing never lets your system reset. Here's the perspective shift that most people in the United States never stop to consider. Humans ate in compressed windows for almost all of recorded history. There were no refrigerators, no open pantries at midnight, no food delivery at 11 p.m. For most of human evolution, and for most people alive in the world today, eating was structured around daylight, fire, availability, and community. 3 meals plus snacks across a 14-hour window is not the historical norm. It's a product of industrial food systems, electric light, and modern convenience culture. The International Diabetes Federation estimates that around 537 million adults worldwide lived with type 2 diabetes as of 2021. The United States has one of the highest per capita rates among wealthy nations. And one of the distinctions between the U.S. and lower incidence populations in parts of Asia, the Mediterranean, and the Middle East is not just what people eat, it's when. Many traditional eating cultures already follow something close to 16 to 8, without naming it or tracking it. A Turkish household that eats a late breakfast, a main meal at midday, and a light dinner before 8 p.m. That's an eating window of roughly 8 to 10 hours. A family in rural Japan eating within daylight hours out of habit and tradition, same structure. You're not doing something radical or biohacker adjacent. You're doing something ancient that most of the world never stopped doing. So, if this is backed by research, practiced globally, and physiologically sensible, why does it feel so hard the first week? Because hunger isn't only physical, it's social, it's habitual, it's deeply emotional. You've eaten breakfast every morning since childhood. Your co-workers go to lunch at noon and expect you to come along. Your family has dinner together at 6. The first week of 16 to 8 doesn't just challenge your stomach. It challenges your schedule, your social rituals, and your sense of what a normal, functional day looks like. There's also a mechanism called hedonic hunger, the drive to eat, not because your body needs fuel, but because food is present, food is pleasurable, and eating is a ritual you've performed thousands of times. A 2022 study published in Appetite found that food cue reactivity, how strongly people respond to the sight or smell of food, is significantly higher in individuals with a history of repeated dieting and restriction cycles. If you've tried to lose weight before and struggled, your brain may have been trained to respond to any form of restriction with amplified cravings. That is a neurological pattern. It's not a character flaw. The person who makes it to day 4 and then eats an entire bag of crackers at 9 a.m. isn't failing. They're experiencing a trained response that was reinforced over years of diet culture, restriction, and rebound. Knowing that doesn't make the craving go away, but it makes it something you can observe, something happening to you, rather than evidence that you're someone who can't do this. Here's where everything lands. 16 to 8 isn't primarily a weight loss tool. It's a metabolic reset, one that works by giving your insulin levels the space to fall, your cells the time to clean house, and your body a daily rhythm it was built for across hundreds of thousands of years of human history. The 2-hour reframe from the beginning of this video isn't a trick. It's genuinely where this starts. Not with a complete overhaul, not with a meal plan, with 2 hours. The one thing I want you to take from this, not a list, just one thing, is this. Tonight, stop eating 2 hours earlier than you normally would. Don't change what you eat. Don't count anything. Don't download an app. Just move your last meal back by 2 hours and keep it there for 7 days. Then pay attention, not to the scale, but to how you feel at 8 a.m. Before you've eaten anything. And here's the question this leaves open, the one this video doesn't fully answer. If the window is the mechanism, and the calories matter less than the timing, what does that mean for what you eat inside those 8 hours? So now we've answered the question the script left open. If the window is the mechanism, what does that mean for what you eat inside those 8 hours? Here's the honest answer. And it's less complicated than the diet industry wants you to believe. The window amplifies whatever you put into it. If you compress 8 hours of processed food, refined carbohydrates, and seed oils into that window, you'll still get some of the hormonal benefits of fasting, the insulin drop, the overnight repair. But you're working against yourself in the feeding window. You're rebuilding inflammation faster than you're clearing it. The foods that work best inside a 16 to 8 window are not a radical list. They're the ones that keep insulin from spiking and crashing over and over again during those 8 hours. Protein at every meal. Not a protein bar, not a shake, actual whole protein from eggs, meat, fish, legumes, fiber, which slows glucose absorption and feeds the gut bacteria that regulate everything from mood to metabolic rate. Healthy fats, which are uniquely satisfying and create almost no insulin response. And whole carbohydrates, rice, potatoes, fruit, timed strategically rather than scattered throughout the day. Here's the practical framework. Think about your eating window as having 2 anchors. Your first meal should be protein forward, not a muffin, not orange juice, something that stabilizes your blood sugar from the start of the window. Your last meal should be the largest, eaten at least 2 to 3 hours before the window closes. So you're not going into the fast with a gut full of undigested food working against the recovery process. That's not a diet. That's a structure, and structure, as it turns out, is more powerful than willpower. There's a dimension of 16 to 8 that almost no beginner-level content covers, and it might be the most underrated part of why this works. Sleep. When you stop eating 2 to 3 hours before bed, you stop asking your digestive system to work, while your brain is trying to do its overnight maintenance. Your core body temperature drops more effectively. Your growth hormone release, which peaks in the first few hours of deep sleep, is significantly higher when insulin is low at bedtime. A 2021 study in obesity reviews found that late-night eating, even within normal caloric ranges, was independently associated with disrupted sleep architecture, higher overnight glucose, and reduced slow-wave sleep. Slow-wave sleep is the phase where memory consolidation, cellular repair, and immune function are most active. You're not just gaining metabolic benefits from cutting off the eating window early. You're protecting your sleep quality. And better sleep directly improves hunger hormone regulation the next morning. Lower ghrelin, higher leptin, which makes the fast itself dramatically easier to maintain. This is the virtuous cycle nobody draws out for you. Eating earlier leads to better sleep, leads to better hunger signals, leads to easier fast leads to eating earlier. It compounds. Most people who stick with 16 to 8 past the first month don't do it because of the weight. They do it because they start sleeping better than they have in years, and they don't want to give that up. The number one reason people quit fasting isn't hunger. It's social friction. Birthdays, business lunches, family dinners that start late. Holiday tables where someone notices you're not eating and suddenly everyone has an opinion about it. Here's what actually works. Don't explain the protocol. You don't need to say, "I'm intermittent fasting." That phrase invites debate. Instead, you have one sentence. "I'm not hungry right now." That's it. Nobody can argue with your hunger. It's private. It's not a diet you're on. It's how your body feels right now. If the social event falls outside your window, you have 3 options. 1. Shift your window for that day. One flexible day does not break the metabolic adaptations you've built. 2. Eat lightly and mindfully, treat it as your meal, and adjust the window around it. 3. Drink sparkling water, be present, and eat after. The goal is consistency across weeks, not perfection across days. A monthly average of 6 fasting days per week is worth far more than 3 perfect weeks followed by abandonment. Here's what 6 months looks like for most people who stay with this. The first 2 weeks are the hardest, not because of hunger, but because of habit disruption. Weeks 3 and 4, the window starts to feel normal. The hunger that used to spike at 7 a.m. has shifted. Your body has learned the rhythm. By month 3, most people report that they don't think about the window much at all. It's become background structure, the way brushing your teeth is background structure. Not a diet, not a project. Just how the day is organized. And month 6. This is where the data gets interesting. A 2021 clinical trial in the New England Journal of Medicine that followed 139 patients with obesity found that time-restricted eating reduced caloric intake by an average of 550 calories per day, without participants being told to restrict anything. Just the structure. The window doing the work, quietly, in the background. You don't need to count anything. You don't need a perfect streak. You need a consistent structure, and 2 hours is where it starts. That's the full picture, the mechanism, the timing. Food inside the window, the sleep, the social reality, and the long game. Now you have everything the protocol actually requires. The only thing left is tonight.